All right, welcome to the Collector Car Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Greg Stanley, and today we're shifting gears into something truly special. Now, if you've ever watched the movie Cars, and let's be honest, I'm sure all of us have, you've seen the magic that happens when animation meets authentic automotive passion. Now, our guest today is Jay Ward, the creative director of the Cars franchise at Pixar. Now, he's not just a man behind the scenes, he's the connective tissue between Hollywood storytelling and the collector car world that we all love. Now, from Doc Hudson to Lightning McQueen, Jay has ensured that the Cars universe speaks the language of car lovers everywhere. Now, we'll talk to Jay about his career at Pixar, the real collector cars that inspired your favorite characters, how the Cars franchise has impacted car culture, and what's next for automotive storytelling at Pixar. Now, as always, I have a fun automotive song to go with this episode. This one celebrates all of the new automotive enthusiasts that were born from watching these car movies over the last few decades. So take a listen for the first 30 seconds, and then you can hear the complete song, as always, at the end of this episode.
I was 5 years old on that movie night, popcorn in hand, eyes full of light. Then lightning roared down that desert track, and there was no way of turning back. Doc taught him how to turn and slide, made us laugh till we nearly cried. But deep inside a fire caught flame, that chrome and rumble, it called my name. Lightning lit the spark, and I've been racing since that day. From Hot Wheels on...
RM Sotheby's is the world's largest collector car auction house by total sales. They are the preeminent market maker of high-quality collector cars and collections, regardless of size or complexity. By working in partnership with the Sotheby's team and its network of 80 offices in 40 countries, RM Sotheby's has established the largest client network of any collector car auction house in the world. Join the RM Sotheby's family by connecting with one of their car specialists at rmsotheby's.com or contact me directly at gstanley@rmsotheby's.com. All right, so I'd like to welcome Jay Ward. Jay, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Greg.
Well, I've been wanting to have you on the podcast for a very long time because obviously your work with Pixar and the Cars franchise is legendary. So I do want to go into that a little bit, but I would like to talk to you because I will see you in actually at the time of this post, I'll see you this coming weekend at Hillsborough Concours. If you would, tell us a little bit about the Concours and how you got involved.
Yeah, Hillsborough, for those who don't know, is on the San Francisco Peninsula. So I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, which is also where Pixar is. And Hillsborough is, I think, the longest running concours in the United States, which is kind of strange. You'd think it'd be Pebble Beach or Amelia Island or one of these, but it's actually Hillsborough. Yeah. It's got a long and glorious past to it. And the peninsula, for those people who don't know, is, you're not too far from Silicon Valley. So you get a lot of great cars coming up from that area. You have Woodside, which is this great little town very close by that has Alice's restaurant. So there's a lot of great car culture on the peninsula that you would not expect, but you'll see at the show. I've been judging there now, I want to say 4 years. I think about 4 years. I came first as a guest, and then I've been honorary judging for a little while now.
Yeah, it's a really great event. I was invited a couple years ago. What's funny, in the Ferrari world, to become a Ferrari judge, you have to judge at like a regional event before you get to like the national. And at that year, there were only two. It was in Philadelphia and it was in San Francisco.
Okay.
And for different reasons, I went to Hillsborough and I had a fantastic time, and I promoted it on my podcast. I did an after video. So they kind of rolled out the red carpet. I did the Friday night deal that's in the candy store? Is that what it's called?
Yeah. So the candy store in Burlingame is really cool. For those who don't know, that's an old Packard dealership from the 1930s. And it looks like it still has the showroom with the kind of tile floors and the sort of 1930s Spanish, just Spanish colonial look to it. And in the back, which was the workshop with all the lifts, they've converted into sort of car display / storage. And you're right, they do a kickoff event there on Friday night.
And that's amazing because when I was there, you were the guest speaker that night.
Oh, okay.
And I remember parking my rental car, and I come walking in and I see the coolest motorcycle sitting outside. And I found out during your presentation it was yours. And I know this is a car podcast, but tell us, do you remember what motorcycle you took that night?
I'm guessing it was the Triumph Thruxton that I
Yes.
have. Yeah, so it's a 2016 Thruxton 1200R, which is a modern Triumph that looks like a very vintage cafe racer. It even has fake amyl carburetors that are actually fuel injectors. It's water cooled, but the radiator's hidden. And it sounds cheesy, but it actually all it's a great sum of parts that you look at it and you just see a bike from 50 years ago, but it's completely modern. And it
Okay, I did
works.
not know that because I thought it was a 50s cafe racer. I didn't look at it too close, but I was impressed by
Yeah.
that one. So yeah, and so getting back to the Concours weekend, so they, like I said, they rolled out the red carpet. The next day, Saturday, they have a countryside tour. Now I know it's kind of quiet. They won't say exactly where they end up. So
Yeah.
if you want to go on this tour, go to their website, check it out. It's in my podcast description, but it's worth it. And so when I went, Dell was the lead car. He's like, "Hey, jump in the car with me," which happened to be a 66 Mustang convertible, which is one of my favorites. And, we went through the Redwood Forest. Then we ended up at a private collection. That was amazing. And then obviously Sunday you had the show. So were you part of the countryside tour or whatever they call it? Or will you be part of that this year?
I did the tour the year that they went to Dick DeLuna's garage, which is in
Yeah.
Woodside, and he's got a killer collection of just antiquities, if you will, and it's great
Yeah.
stuff. This year is interesting because I'm actually going to be in Sao Paulo, Brazil. We have a traveling exhibit called Mundo Pixar, World of Pixar. It actually started in Brazil 3 or 4 years ago, and it's become massive, massive, super popular, sells out wherever it goes. And we're coming back to Sao Paulo, Brazil, with new rooms. And so I'll be opening that up and doing the press for that. And I literally fly back on Saturday and Sunday. I'll be at the Concours.
So when I see you, I'll poke you with a stick or something, make sure you're awake, right?
Yeah,
It's gotta be like
exactly.
red eye, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I travel a lot for work. And I will say, knock on wood, for the most part, I'm pretty good about the jet lag thing.
Okay. Well, we
Yeah.
will get to your work here in a second. So what
Yeah.
are your duties on Sunday? Are you judging a particular class? Are you the grand marshal? Kind of what does your Sunday look like at Hillsborough?
I typically do honorary judging, and that's kind of, for people who don't know, honorary judging is more like subjective things like most elegant open, most elegant closed, design or style awards, which are great because I'm not getting into nut and bolt. From judging Ferraris that you have to go, is it the right hose clamp? Is it the right fastener? They use the oil filter. And that's okay, but sometimes it can be a grind. It's really a trick in the judging world, and this is that there's the car that you really love and admire, but it's slightly incorrect. And then there's
Yes.
the car that is 100% dead on correct, frame off, perfect to a T, but it's brown on brown and not a desirable model. And it's really tough. That car that did the nut and bolt deserves to win the class. And yet that more elegant, more beautiful, more rare car with the cooler story that has some leaks and some things that it's always such a conundrum for me of what you actually give the tip of the hat to.
I actually just experienced that 2 years ago in Concorso Italiano. I was judging the Dino class,
Mm,
and there was this gorgeous Dino there, but like exactly what you said, it was black, wasn't originally black. It had chairs and flares, wasn't originally chairs and flares. Had glass covered headlights, which looked stunningly sexy, but those were not available on that particular car, and the wheels were an inch bigger or wider. And I told the guy, I'm like, I'm sorry, you're not getting a Platino because of all these reasons, but yours is literally my favorite car in the class. So
did the gentleman understand what you were
he did.
saying?
He
Yeah.
did.
And that's always nice. The tricky part is a lot of people will present their car and they don't actually see those issues. And it's not for us to say, hey, your carpets are wrong, because then you get into a debate with an owner, which is tricky too. So, I kudos to you for being able to tell the guy, hey, I love your car. Here's the things that are incorrect. And he owned up and knew it. It's a lot tougher when you're judging cars that all should be perfect and you see
Yes.
things and you go, that's not right. And I know the owner will not want to hear that information, but they're walking away at the end of the day going, why did I not even place?
Well, hopefully I'll find you Sunday afternoon and I'll ask you how to go.
Yeah. For Ferraris, are you judging all Ferraris this year? Or is there a particular class?
No, this year I'm doing, I just got the list. I like the 328s, the Magnum PI Ferraris. I typically like to judge older stuff.
Uh-huh.
That's what I was given this year. So,
Okay. Well,
yeah.
my dad had a 308 GTB that he bought brand new in 1978.
Are you trying to influence the judges here?
No, what I'm trying to do is find the car. It's gone. And I got a hold of the 308 registry in Germany, and the guy said, your dad's numbers never come up again. There's so many 308s out there. It's not like a 250 GT Lusso where they're all known. They cranked out a lot of 308s. That was a very popular car. And, it's red with tan like they
I was
all
going to
were,
ask you, is it red and tan?
right? If it was a black car, silver or green or white, you go, wait, I think, it's a tough one. So his car's
Yeah,
not.
I ran across a dark green with chocolate interior, and I'm like, boy, that's a good. Any color combination you don't typically see is kind of cool.
Always cool. I saw a white 308 GTB at Pebble, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, and the license plate just said not red. I was like, yes, yes.
That's a good way to look at it. Well,
Yeah.
I'm sure, I could talk to you about, 308s all day, but let's talk about some of the Pixar stuff, if that's okay. Before I do that, June the 22nd, Hillsborough Concours d'Elegance. You can go to hillsboroughconcours.org to get your tickets and figure out more. Like I said, it'll be in the description as well. But all right, so we're taking a little break from talking to Jay Ward to learn a little bit more about the Hillsborough Concours d'Elegance. And to help me do this, I wanted to have Glen Egan on. Glen, how are you doing today?
Cheers, doing grand. Thank you very, very much for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So you head up this wonderful weekend, don't you?
Yes, I'm the chairman of the Hillsborough Concours, and yeah, it's a fabulous weekend of car aficionados hanging out and enjoying their hobby, their shared hobby. The event has been actually going on for 69 years. So it's a very, very long and storied history. It has the honor of being the longest continuously running concours in the world, and we ran continuously up until COVID in 2020, and unfortunately we weren't able to put on our event. But until then, so somebody else needs to go continuously for 67 more years, and then we will lose that crown. But it's it's a great weekend. We have sort of three sections of the event of the weekend that we put on. The first is our kickoff party, which happens on Friday. And that's hosted a really nice car collection where we have a lot of people get introduced to the honorary judges. Jay Ward is an honorary judge that really helps sort of frame the judging of the whole event. And then on Saturday, we have our Tour d'Elegance, which opportunity for folks to all get together and drive around the beautiful California countryside and enjoy their cars together, and then for a nice lunch hosted by that. And then Sunday is the main event. Sunday's the Hillsborough Concours d'Elegance, which takes place on the beautiful Crystal Springs Golf Course grounds. We get about 200 odd cars out onto the fairway there. Around 3,000 odd people show up, and to get to witness it all. We have 20 judged classes, so that's 20 sets of cars in various different different categories. Things like, for instance, the 308, 328 class, which you're going to be judging this year, or the preservation class, which essentially is like cars that have not been restored. They're just the way, they've existed since the get-go, with all their beautiful patina and everything in between. American sports cars. We have a couple of big Cadillac classes this year. So we've got pre and post-war Cadillacs. So those are going to be beautiful out there. Yeah, so they're going to get judged by the SCCA or the other various judging organizations, and then we hand out some awards, and then that culminates with, we have two main awards. The first is the best in class elegance, and so a lot of times that's going to be some beautiful touring and especially in the pre-war kind of era, a lot of beautiful machines out of that. And then the Concours, the Sport, which is the best sports car. So that's going to tend to be some of the more racy modern machines. But hey, it's open to everybody. So those are how we're going to culminate the event.
Yeah, that's incredible, and I can't wait to see the cars. I've been out there before. Just a wonderful event. Gorgeous area, obviously, outside of San Francisco. Wonderful place, and just a first-class event all around. Now, what I will do is I will pick, my 10 favorite. I'll interview some of the car owners while I'm there, and I'll share those after the fact, and people really seem to love those car stories. Mm-hmm. And speaking of car stories, I see some red cars on top of your bookshelf back there. I can't tell if those are Legos. Looks like a Formula One car. What kind of cars are you into?
I'm kind of a Ferrari buff. I love Ferraris, and it all kind of goes back to when I first my sort of my origin story when it comes to cars is going to see the Canadian Grand Prix when I was 16 years old with my father, and just the sound and the speed and everything. Like I was getting my driver's license, I was I wanted to drive, but to see that, yeah, that was that moment that the bug kind of really just dug deep. And so ever since then, I've been a big fan. I want to say that I became a Ferrari fan. I'm half English, as you can kind of tell, and I became a Ferrari fan when Nigel Mansell, in his first outing in the 640 Ferrari in Brazil, I think he moved over to Ferrari, and that they'd switched out the gearbox to the first. It was the first paddle shifter gearbox, and and it had been running in pre-season, and it was always breaking down. So the point that he booked his flight out of Brazil early because he was like, it's going to break down in 3 laps and I'm going to get the hell out, avoid the traffic kind of thing. And instead, it ran and won the race. And he was, the Tifosi loved him, and he was dubbed Il Leone, the Lion of England, and all this good stuff. And that I think that's when I really started to get into Ferraris. And so yeah, I've had a few over the years, and they're just great, beautiful machines. And I'm so happy, like you mentioned, the 308, 328s, 50 years. I had a 328 myself. Just a wonderful, like a slice in time to sit there and drive in that car. Like it's just a snapshot of that sort of that 80s kind of just feeling. I don't know how better to describe it. Yeah, there's faster cars and all that kind of stuff, but that just puts you in that moment, that sort of Miami Vice, moment of cars in that time. So yeah, love it.
That's what's so great about cars is they'll transport you back, to whatever experience you had with it in the past, which is so wonderful. So, well, let's see. We can find out more about the Hillsborough Concours Elegance by going to your website, hillsboroughconcours.org. And again, it's on June the 22nd. On Sundays, the big concours, but obviously we have the Friday night party at the candy store, right?
Yes, always a great bash, always a great opportunity. We get to introduce the honorary judges. We really, really appreciate their expertise. You've been chatting with Jay Ward. He has great depth and experience in the car community. And it's just a way to sort of connect, past, present, and future there. So it's a great menu.
Speaking of Jay, we better get back to his interview. But Glenn, thanks so much for being on the Collector Car Podcast.
Awesome to be here. Thank you very, very much for having me.
Let's talk a little bit about Pixar's, because I think there are a whole generation, multiple generations of car enthusiasts, I believe, were inspired by those movies. I have a nephew of mine, Christian. He would recite the words, every line, every time he saw the movie. It was unbelievable. It was uncanny. His parents said he wants to watch it over 200 times. So,
wow.
Like, how did you get started in that process at Pixar? I don't need, your whole career journey here, but I mean, that's pretty interesting to be, creative director on something that's become such a worldwide phenomenon.
Yeah, and it was definitely serendipitous and definitely like a didn't see it coming kind of thing. I started at Pixar on Monsters, Inc. As a PA, which was an entry level position, and worked on that film for a few years. And as we were getting further along on that film, around the year 2000, so 25 years ago, somebody said, hey, there's a flat file with this artwork in it, and there's this little idea, sketches for a movie about these little living cars in this town. You're a car guy. I was already a car guy. I drove a 49 Lincoln Cosmopolitan coupe to work, chopped with a DeSoto grill. So, I had a 56 Ford F100 that was chopped, that was lowered. And so they knew I was a hardcore car guy. They said, you might want to actually work on this. And so when I started on cars, the director realized, wow, this guy really, really knows about cars. And so I began to get pulled in more and more to sort of be a consultant of sorts to the film, as well as managing the team that built the characters in the computer. So I was overseeing the process as we built the characters to make sure Doc Hudson's lug pattern was right, or that Luigi had transverse leaf springs like a Fiat 500 does, or those kind of things I would sort of weigh in on and make sure bias ply tires, right? They didn't have radials back then. So those kind of things the animators, you can't expect them to know that. Cars get really, really nerdy, very, very specific. And so I just help them. And from watching the movie Cars, we got all those details right, the sounds, the look, the way the cars move. All that was the people on the show like myself who were real car people that said, look, we're not going to make some fake film. There's nothing worse than watching a film set in the 1950s and a 1979 Super Beetle drives by in the background. You're like, bro, you literally couldn't find an oval window Beetle. The movie is set in the 50s and you've got a 70s Beetle driving by. Come on. It bugs me to no end. And so we were very distinct about getting all those details right.
Yeah, that's really a good point. You can't see it, but behind me, I've got a poster of, the historic Mustangs for generations. And they have a 65 Mustang GT convertible on there with the side ornamentation that was not on GT Mustangs. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to throw this whole poster out just because of that one little thing, because if it's not authentic in one little tiny aspect, it kind of blows everything up, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's very easy for a person who's not a car person to just not see it, overlook it. But for car people who are, it's really hard to overlook it. I think one of the films that does it really well is American Graffiti, and there's some things that are wrong on that film, but you get the feeling and the vibe of 1962. And he really selected the cars that best fit the personality of the characters in the film. And when I watched that, it holds up pretty well considering, because George Lucas was a hardcore car guy. He raced a Cobra for a while. He lived in Modesto in the Central Valley, which is where I went to high school. I went to his rival high school, and it's a car town. And he made that film only 12 years after he graduated high school. So it was all still very fresh in his mind of casting the right cars for that film.
That's crazy because I saw a fact about that. It would be like, let's make a movie about 2013. It's like, well, nobody wants to make a movie about 2013.
No, and everybody told him don't do it. It's just like Star Wars. He was told, this is going to fail. This isn't going to do well. Don't do it. But got to go through that.
So what was that like the casting process? I know you were probably involved in, I don't know, were you involved in the casting process? Like, how did it come out that, we want these folks, for these particular roles? Did you have any input, or was it kind of, get your blessing at some point? I mean, Paul Newman, so iconic.
Yeah, very iconic. And actually one of the last movies he did before he passed away was Cars, which is pretty incredible that, the guy had the most storied film career you can imagine and was a race car driver. And that was the film he ended on, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
To answer your question, it's funny. One thing I think that is distinct about Pixar is a lot of other animation studios will cast a famous actor and then make the character in the computer look like that character. We've never done that. We've always done the opposite. We have tried to tell the story we want to tell and then find the actor that fits within that story we're trying to tell, because everything should support the story first, right? So we didn't make a fish that looks like Will Smith for, a DreamWorks kind of thing. We made Finding Nemo, and we found the most neurotic guy to play as Nemo's father, which was Albert Brooks, right? So we didn't make the fish look like Albert Brooks. That's what I think Pixar's strength is. So when they were casting for Cars, and I wasn't part of that process, a cocky guy who is very sure of himself. You watch Owen Wilson in, Bottle Rocket or any of those Wes Anderson films. He's perfect for that, right? All those characters really, all those actors really fulfilled the part we were trying to play those characters. And I think it's one of the stronger things of that film is how good the casting was.
Yeah. So let's go over the list here. So I got to take Paul Newman out of the list here, but the top billed folks: Owen Wilson, Bonnie Hunt, Larry the Cable Guy, Cheech Martin, Tony Shalhoub, George Carlin, John Ratzenberger. Any others? Who is the biggest car enthusiast of that group? Is there one? Or
actually, the biggest car enthusiast is Tim Allen, because he was Buzz Lightyear, and so Buzz Lightyear, Tim Allen.
I get that. Yeah,
he's the big car
collection.
Right, of the people on the car list in the Cars world. Good question. Cheech Marin has a love of cars and lowriders. He definitely got it.
That's true.
He was a good one for that. Owen, not so much of a car guy. Bonnie, not so much a car girl, but you don't always want that necessarily, because the part they're playing is bigger than that. And that's another distinction about the movie Cars, is that it's not a film about automobiles. It's a film about characters who happen to be automobiles, right? So a good thing to think about is if you hand a kid a Lightning McQueen diecast, he'll never say, oh, that's a red race car. No, he'll say, that's Lightning McQueen, who happens to be a red race car, right? So it's always character first. And when we cast these actors, we always cast who is the best character to fulfill that part.
Right. Yeah. I can totally see that for sure. Now, did you have any interaction with Michael Schumacher for his little part?
No, John, our director, recorded him, and I think they didn't record him at Pixar. I think John had to go to Italy, and or they did a tie line. And the cool thing was, is Michael did it in Italian and English and in German.
Okay.
So he did it in three languages, which is cool. If you notice when the Schumacher car drives in at the end, it's an F430, which was a current car at the time, and there's two Maseratis that are his sort of escorts. I worked with a guy named Luca Del Monte from Maserati at that point to when we put those cars in the film, the Quattroporte was a new car then, brand new. And we added that. And Luke and I are still friends to this day, and he's written a number of really great books about Ferrari.
Oh,
And
nice.
I was just in Turin to celebrate Pininfarina's 95th birthday. I was on a panel, and Luca Del Monte just wrote the book on the 95th anniversary of Pininfarina. He's sitting next to me, and I hadn't seen him in probably a decade. So it's just cool
Uh,
how these car worlds sort of keep, intersecting with each other.
Now, I don't mean to brag, but I was once in an elevator with Richard Petty.
Nice. Very good.
Do
Very
you
good.
have any, since, the Cars movie came out and the
Yeah.
franchise, any fun interactions with the stars that you never met in person till after the movie?
Yeah, quite a few. Richard Petty, I've had a number of things with, and when he was selling one of his Superbirds through Mecum, I went out to Charing Cross and we did some stuff together.
Mm.
I've met him a number of times. The best one was Mario Andretti, which was about maybe 10 years after the film came out. I was at SEMA one year and I was sitting at this old steakhouse in the old part of Vegas, and I look over and there's Mario and his assistant, who we also put in the film. And I said, Mario, I don't think you know me or not. My name's Jay. I work at Pixar, worked on cars. And anyway, I just want to say hi. And he goes, I have to tell you, he said, I get kids coming up to me all the time asking me to sign this Mario Andretti diecast. He said, they don't know that I raced at Indy, that I, won an F1 championship, that I raced in NASCAR. They don't know any of that. They just know me as the guy from Cars. And he said, I really have to thank you guys because you opened up who I am to a whole generation of children. And really think about that, right? Like, and Richard Petty said the same thing. It caused people under 30 years old to know who these legends were in racing. That's pretty significant, that a film brought a highlight to these guys who would have sort of been beloved by their generation, but nobody younger.
Right, right. Yeah. What other ways have you seen the impact in the next generation? Because I know in the car world, everybody's concerned about the next generation. Like, who's going to take care of the 50s Ferraris or the 40s pre-war cars, brass era? Like,
Yeah.
and all the car stuff that you do, what kind of next gen trends are you seeing? And maybe they came out of the Cars franchise or not.
Yeah, I mean, we're the film next year, 2026, will be 20 years old, which is hard to believe, right? So Cars is now becoming generational. You now have young parents who maybe saw that movie when they were kids, and that's hard to wrap your head around, but that's kind of where we're at, right? Toy Story's 30 years old this year, right? November of 2025, Toy Story came out in November of 1995. So anyway, next year, 20 years for Cars. Daniel Suarez, NASCAR driver. Hey, I had a Lightning McQueen poster on my wall, grew up. Lightning McQueen is who I wanted to be. That's how I got into NASCAR. Liam Lawson and Isaac Hadjar are racing right now for the Red Bull team. Both of those guys grew up loving the movie Cars and loving Lightning McQueen. He was a hero to them, and now they're racing. So in a strange way, we have a generation of race car drivers who grew up watching the movie Cars and wanted to be Lightning McQueen. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's very, very cool. Now, my nephew is not a NASCAR driver, but he is going to be. He's going to baseball scholarship to college, so he's performing in other ways, which is really
Okay,
yeah.
not bad. I was going to say get him into shifter carts, but no, he's doing baseball. Okay.
So, what is the future for the Cars franchise? You're headed to Brazil. That's sounds like that happened on its own, kind of thing. Is that right?
Yeah, it's interesting. We have Disney offices around the world, and our Latin America office reached out during the pandemic and said, "Hey, Brazil specifically has a deep love of Pixar, not Disney, Pixar. They actually know the difference. A lot of people go, oh, it's all Disney, Disney, and they don't understand that Pixar Animation Studios is a separate studio 350 miles away from Disney that make completely different films. It's all just Disney to them, and that's okay. But Brazil understood and had an affinity for Pixar films. And so they asked, could we create this experience for people who don't have a Disney park near them, right? You live in Brazil, Disneyland's not very close. How do we bring the love of our films to them? And I helped them design a 30 plus thousand square foot pop-up experience where you buy a ticket, pretty nominal price. You go in a time slot and you walk through Pixar films. In every room, you're completely immersed in that movie, completely. Sculpts, music, lights, the smell of food in the Ratatouille room. And when you're in the room, you can't see any other film. You're completely in that movie in that moment. The soundtrack is playing and you're sort of transported to another time and place. And you do that room by room by room and you find your favorite Pixar film and just live in it for a moment. And that we opened that in Sao Paulo in, I want to say 21 or 22. We had capacity for like 300,000 people to walk through, and we pre-sold 270,000 tickets. It just, people just went bonkers. It completely sold out. We sold months worth of merchandise within a few weeks. So we moved it to Rio de Janeiro and it sold out again. So we said, man, people really love this. What are other places that don't have a Disney park nearby that have a deep affinity for Pixar? So we opened a second completely new Mundo Pixar in Madrid, Spain, at AFIMA, which is a conference center, sold 600,000 tickets at AFIMA.
Oh my gosh.
So then we opened a third one in Mexico City. So now there's 3 Mundo Pixars traveling the world that stay in a location for about 3 months and then move to another location. And every time it moves, it sells hundreds of thousands of tickets. And then it just moves on again. So it's been really special for me because what we do is we keep making it better. We keep adding new rooms. We keep adding new sculpts, new experiences, more photo ops, and putting the resources back into it to make it better instead of just, oh, let's just let it run its course. My goal is always to take whatever profit you make and put it back into it to make it better and better and better so that you always exceed people's expectations.
So what's going on in the Cars franchise in the US? Like what's happening? Is there plans you can share? Or is there stuff happening in the future? Obviously, we got the big 20th anniversary. I'm assuming a bunch of stuff will happen then.
Yeah, a lot will be happening for that. It's also the 100th anniversary of Route 66. So I think there'll be some things coinciding, right? So 100th of Route 66, 20th of Cars happen the same year, which is unusual scenario. So that's cool. We also have a new addition to Walt Disney World going in that's going to be Cars related. And that just got announced about 2 weeks ago. So there's a kind of a Cars themed attraction going in at Walt Disney World. And we have a couple of other projects going. People keep saying, is there a Cars 4? There is not right now. There's no Cars 4 coming right now. Someday would be great, but we don't have it at the moment. But there is, I'd just say a couple other smaller, more ancillary projects that are happening right now in the Cars world that are coming.
All right. So we'll have to stay tuned for that.
It's a growing, living franchise, and we'll always support it. And always, there's always new die casts, new themes, new short content. I just did a series of Lego shorts last year called Brick Tunes that were Pixar short films, but done completely in Lego. And we had a Cars one that was great. We had Owen Wilson and Larry the Cable Guy do the voices for it.
That's great.
Yeah.
So what is one of your favorite car movies?
Well, I mentioned
a car.
A movie about a car or car movies?
Just a movie you really enjoy that either has a great car in it, great car chase, great car story.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned American Graffiti because it's to me, one of the most central films that uses the cars, multiple cars, as central figures of core figures in the film, right? The cars represent so much of that movie and cruising culture, and the mating ritual of being in a car to pick up on girls was sort of really well encapsulated in that film. I'm actually excited about the new Brad Pitt F1 movie coming. I'm hopeful that it's, Rush was a great one a few years ago. Ford versus Ferrari was great. We're finally getting decent car films. And to be honest, it was slim pickings for many years, right? You had a lot of like Fast and Furious kind of stuff where it was super fake. Great for the popcorn munching audience, but for car people, you're just like, oh, this pains me so much. Like you don't pop a wheelie, and it's just, and that's kind of what we got to choose from for years. I've always been a fan of the original BBC Top Gear because it was more about the personalities and the storytelling and 3 people that were really passionate and doing, goofy things at a level that I could understand as a car guy, but it never felt scripted, like throwing wrenches at each other and yelling and that kind of stuff. That doesn't do anything for me.
In the Concours world, or let's just call it car show world, because you're in there a lot. What's the best way you've seen to get the next generation engaged and excited about cars?
Good question. Haggerty, I think, has done a pretty good job with the youth judging panels. I mean, honestly, everywhere I go, people are really hungry to get young kids interested. So I recommend anybody who is a car person, bring your son or daughter to those shows with you and have them start learning about judging, even if it's the kids panel or whatever. My son is going to be helping out at Hillsborough this year. He's just turned 15 and he loves looking at cars and judging. He judged with me at Hilton Head last year as sort of a shadow judge. So he's learning, how to tell what's correct on a car, what's not, how to look at documentation, listening to an owner's story. As you know, most of the time the owner will tell you. You don't even have to find it. The owner will end up
Oh,
telling you.
they're looking at you as you walk by, hoping you make eye contact because they want to share the story.
Yeah, exactly. So he's learning all that. I think there's hope for the next generation because, we're seeing 80s and 90s cars, as you know, really coming up right now. Uh, the Ferrari Testarossa, right? The Miami Vice car. That car was kind of like a not a beloved car 15 years ago. People went, that's kind of schlocky with the big grates on the side. It's very 80s, but that is now very in vogue, right? The Ferrari 355s and 348s, again, kind of at one point, those, I mean, a 355 is really more beloved than a 360, right? So there's this sweet spot of these last analog cars, the last cars before we went to the F1 transmissions and, too much electronics, right on that precipice of 80s and 90s. It's really getting a lot of love now.
Yes, I actually have a podcast episode dedicated to the last of the analog cars. So, yeah, it's kind of a weird thing to say because all cars are analog up until just very recently.
Yeah, right.
You know?
But here's a good example. I have a Porsche 997.2, and that car is the last 911 with hydraulic steering. It's the last Porsche that has a key to start. It's the last one that doesn't have an auto stop start where the engine dies every time you pull up to a stoplight and you have to disable it. It doesn't have any of that stuff. When you lock the doors, it goes chunk and locks the doors, right? Cars don't do any of that stuff anymore. Everything we've gotten so good with electronic assists to everything that most of the physical things that used to open and close or click that to me are part of the audio sensory thing of driving a car. Those are gone now. So I like driving a 997.2. To me, that's kind of really the last kind of sports car 911, smaller. The newer ones are fantastic, but they're Grand Tour, they're a GT, right? Just it's a different thing now. But that's the kind of cars that I crave.
It's funny because people would joke the anti-theft device is a manual transmission, right?
Yeah.
Well, you can almost make the argument the anti-theft device in the future is going to be a key because they'll be like, what is this? Where do I put it? I don't know what's
yeah. I'm in the car. Why isn't it starting? Yeah.
right.
Pretty
Well,
much.
who came up with the idea, or were you part of the decision-making process to animate the cars not with their eyes as the headlights, which has always been done,
Yeah.
and put the eyes in the windshield
Yeah.
or a more expressive kind of look?
Yeah. That actually credit has been given to Disney because in 1952 they did a short film called Susie the Little Blue Coupe. That's one of my favorite short films. You can watch it for free on YouTube or it's on Disney Plus. And it was a little car that was alive that had an owner that bought it in 1952, and the eyes were in the windshield. And what we realized from watching that was how much it opened up the expression of the vehicle, right? Because when you put the eyes in the headlights, I'll give you an example here with the die cast. If I can hold it up in front of me, this is Louise Nash from Cars 3. The eyes are back here, right? If the eyes are down here, you basically have the head of a snake. It's all down low and everything's down low. And as soon as you start turning to the side, the face goes away. But by bringing the eyes back here, now you got the head of a horse or a dog. You got a snout with a mouth in front and the eyes back here with this long nose, and the front wheels can become shoulders. And so you open up all this acting ability that you wouldn't have. And by limiting it just to that, it really limits what you can do by putting everything in the front. This opens up a whole big face that you can look at and really get a lot of expression out of. So yeah, 1952, Suzy Little Blue Coupe did it first.
Well, I'm glad I asked that question. I'm glad you had a car handy.
Strangely enough, I got plenty of die cast on hand if you ever need to borrow something.
All right, so let's get out of Pixar. Let's get out of the Hillsborough Concours and tell me, you mentioned the Porsche you have in your garage. Is there another fun car you can share that's in your garage?
I've got not quite a few cars. I've got a few cars, and I'm looking right now for what's next, but I do have the 997.2. And what's cool about it is we were talking about cars that are unusual colors. Mine is Porsche Racing Green Metallic over Sand Beige, which is basically British Racing Green. It was ordered by Porsche Cars North America as a launch car. So it was ordered as a press and media vehicle. So it's really well equipped, brand new in 2009. And those are sort of hen's teeth kind of cars now because everybody wants the launch cars had the neat colors. And then they weren't, everybody who went in and bought one bought black, silver, white, maybe dark blue. So finding a Porsche Racing Green Metallic 997 is hard to find. I've got a 76 911S, which is nothing special. The 74 to 77s were the most unloved 911s forever because they had smog stuff on them. They're narrow body. They're 2.7 magnesium cars that leaked oil. But when you get those sorted, they're fantastic. They're the last of the narrow body pre-SC cars, and they're really great when you get them sorted. My car is a California car in Minerva Blue Metallic, so another great color. I've got a 57 Pontiac Safari station wagon, which is basically a Nomad, but Pontiac's version, which had a longer wheelbase and a Pontiac engine. I bought that when my daughter was born to take her to school. I just sold a 39 Mercury convertible that was a Westergaard pre-war style custom, a tail dragger that had Zephyr bumpers and
Oh,
Studebaker tail lights on it. That was a nice car, very Art Deco. I've got a 29 Model A Roadster with a Cadillac 331, very traditional 50s style hot rod that I built with hand tools in my garage when I got married that I've driven to Bonneville and back.
wow.
Really fun car. I've got deuce rails ready to go under it. I've just never done it. And then I've got a bunch of motorcycles and motorcycle projects. And you like Italian things. I just picked up a 92 Ducati 851, which was the last of the pre 916 bikes that had the Desmo four valve heads, water cooled, fuel injected. That was really a race bike for the street. That had 100 horsepower in 1992. That bike was a beast. Yeah.
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 Well, that's amazing. Yeah, it's interesting. What's the connection between hot rods and Porsches? Because they're kind of opposites.
It's funny, they're actually very well connected. When you go back, look at James Dean. You know, what did he do? He went out and raced a 356 and then a 550 Spider. Early Porsches had the same theory as hot rodding, which is lighter is faster, right? So hot rod was about stripping off fenders and stripping off extra weight to get the maximum power to weight ratio. And that's what Porsche excelled at in the early days, right? You also have a vehicle that is sort of meant to be customized, right? The early 356s, almost everybody put, Nerf bar bumpers and lighter wheels and lowered them down. And, you see what Rod Emery does with the Outlaw stuff now, right? It's the same thing of customizing, of not leaving things stock. And I think there is a through line between Porsches and hot rods.
Yeah. No, I can see that. You explained it very well. I typically think V8 front engine can handle, Porsche flat six rear engine can handle,
Yeah.
perspective.
Well,
So,
the 356 911s handle, but you have to know what you're doing and you can't lift. That's the
yeah.
trick. You just can't lift, and you have to know how to counter steer and how to use the power band well. Uh, I'll tell you a really quick story. The way I got into Concours judging in the first place was I was at Pixar one day, and across the street from us is a place called Fantasy Junction that sells high-end European and exotic cars. And Bruce Trinery, the owner, called me and he said, "Hey, I've got a guy who wants to come over to Pixar to visit." I was like, "Oh, I'm kind of busy, but I don't really have time to have guests, but Fantasy Junction, whatever you guys want, sure." And it was Bill Warner from the Amelia Island Conqueror, who I didn't know, and his wife Jane. And I gave them a tour, and he was a nice guy. And we started talking about Edsel Ford and his designer, which was E.T. Gregory. And we both had this love of E.T. Gregory designs. And he used to own the Edsel Ford Speedster, which I didn't know. And so he's like, "I'll send you a die cast of it." And I said, "Oh, wow, thank you. Super, amazingly nice guy." And then Bill said, "Have you ever judged at a Concours?" I'm like, "No." And he said, I think you should. He says, "Just let me ask you, what's your favorite car?" And I said, "I've got my list with me. Do you want my top 50 American or European?" He's like, "Okay, you need to judge at a Concours." So he invited me to judge at Amelia Island. I think this was 2015, so 10 years ago. And he had me honorary judge with Hurley Haywood. And I was like, no idea what I was doing, but really learned and loved it, and judged at Amelia for many, many years, and still one of the judges at Amelia. And that opened up the door to all these other things that eventually led to Pebble Beach the next year. And I also judge at Villa d'Este, which I just got back from about 2 weeks ago. So it opened up everything. I always say, "Bill, you're the reason I got into Concours judging, really."
It's funny. Bill's been on my podcast, I think 4 times, and a super nice guy. And my quick Bill Warner story is I didn't really know him until 4 years ago or so. And I grew up in Jacksonville.
Okay.
So I'm hanging out. He invites me to his warehouse. I get to his warehouse. A half mile in one direction is where our vet was for our animals growing up. A half mile in the other direction on the same street is where I went to kindergarten.
Okay.
And then found out I went to high school with his 2 identical twin daughters. They were a year behind me. I knew who they were because I actually went to junior prom with their best friend. So it was like this small world kind of thing. So we've been keeping in touch with the whole family ever since then. So
they're honestly amazing people. They are such like ambassadors in the classic car world. And Bill's like a Rolodex of like, "Oh, you should call so and so." He has everybody's number, and I think that's why that Concours was really put on the map. Was Bill could call anybody and say, "I want you here next month and bring 3 cars," and you just do it because Bill asked you to. So
well, and if you're ever with them over lunch, just the stories you hear are just incredible. And unfortunately, you can't put them on a podcast, or else I would have. But he's just such a historian, and so many great, incredible experiences he's had over his lifetime in the car world, for sure. So yeah, really cool guy. Well, I'll ask you real quick, since you said you had 2 lists. If you had your ultimate 3-car garage, what would the 3 cars be?
Good question. Okay. I have never really had a meaningful classic Ferrari. I would have a 250 GT Lusso to me for Ferraris. That's a great one. Put that aside. I like weird Italian stuff. I think I would like to have an ISO Rivolta as a daily driver, because it's got a small block Chevy and yet it's got Italian looks, kind of that great Bertone design.
Grifo? You want the Rivolta?
I actually like the Rivolta. I think the Grifos are cool, but I'm more of the 60s than the 70s, and Grifo gets much more curvaceous. I'm more 50s, 60s cars. And then the last one, if I did something American, I'd do a Continental Mark II. I think those are great cars, or a 65 Riv for my American car, something like that. You got to have, one Italian, one American, and then maybe one German. Although it'd be hard to leave a Porsche out of there, because I do love Porsches a lot. 3 cars, that's it, huh?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
Oh,
I was
man.
kind of on the same. It changes all the time.
It does.
I picked a 275 GTB. I always
Four cam or 2 cam?
4 cam.
Long nose.
Long nose.
Alloy.
Doesn't have to be, but
It's your money. It's your money.
Yeah.
Do whatever you want.
I also would pick, it's going to sound weird, the Buick, the big convertible 53.
Oh, Skylark. 53 is the first year, which is cool. 54 is the weird one that has the big wheel arches and the cutouts. 54 got radical.
Yeah, I think
53 was that first year of the Motorama car. So you had the Cadillac Eldorado, you had the Oldsmobile Fiesta, and then you had, it was 53 GM was like super high water. They just went crazy. They had so much budget to do unique cars in those years.
Yeah, and I'm a Mustang Shelby guy, and people are like, you want to have a Mustang or Shelby? I'm like, well, I count the 275 GTB as a sophisticated Italian version of a Mustang fastback. So it checks that box. And then I would do something. I feel like I'd have to have like a Carrera GT, some Porsche. Carrera GTs are such a wild animal, and a snapshot that'll never happen again. So
that's true. That's a crazy one as well. Yeah. I'm going to have to think about it more.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being on the Collector Car podcast. I know I'll see you. I hope I'll see you at Hillsborough. Sounds like you've got quite a schedule.
Yeah, you as well. I'll find you in the Ferrari class.
Yeah. So I'll find you there. And for my listeners who would like to follow you socially, what's your, you on Instagram, you on Facebook? Where are you?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. It's East Bay, which is where I live, underbar the letter J. So East Bay J is my Instagram. And that's a good place to find me. I'm out there.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being on the podcast, Jay. I really appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks for having me. And I'll see you at Hillsborough. And I'll be looking for the guy with the Hawaiian shirt and the handlebar mustache in the 308 class.
I was 5 years old on that movie night, popcorn in hand, eyes full of light. Then lightning roared down that desert track, and there was no way of turning back. Doc taught him how to turn and slide, made us laugh till we nearly cried. But deep inside a fire caught flame, that chrome and rumble, it called my name. Lightning lit the spark and I've been racing since that day. From Hot Wheels on the carpet to dreaming of Monterey. I saw more than just a movie, I saw a world come alive, where cars had hearts and stories and they made me want to drive. Yeah, lightning lit the spark, and it's still burning in the dark. I drew flames on every notebook page, played pit crew chief like a kid on stage. Every V8 rumbled down my street, felt like Radiator Springs beneath my feet. I learned the makes, the years, the sound of Mustangs, Mopars, classics found. And every car show that I go see feels like McQueen is riding with me. Lightning lit the spark and I've been racing since that day. watching cars just like I used to do. And I see that same wide-eyed stare, that spark, that love, that engine's flare. Lightning lit the spark, and it passed down through the years, from car beds and lunchbox art to first gear shifting cheers. It taught us more than driving, it taught us heart and pride, to find your road and take that ride. Yeah, lightning lit the spark, and now we're driving toward the stars.